Now that we have a flexible, full color palette system, we can now test it out on a real project. Remember the menu we put together in our typography section? We're going to start to take our color palette and apply it to our menu as a way to test out colors, to see which ones pair well together. And while I'm doing this, I'm also thinking about my branding standards manual, or my brand standard manual, where I'm going to be listing lots of different ways which you should combine color, but also list ways that I shouldn't combine color. So having some examples of 2 color combinations from this color palette that are not suggested, but also suggested. So I'm thinking about that while I'm testing out different colors and writing those notes down. So when we come to do that, the standards manual, it'll be a very, very quick process. So here we go. So what do we think here about colors? What do we make the background? Do we make it a darker background with lighter typography on top, or switch it around? I'm going to try dark background first because I think the darker blue, the stone gray, can add a lot of that richness and tradition and all of those good words that we used in our research. So let me draw a box and make it a darker color. We're going to make it the stone gray, so I'm just going to be using my eyedropper tool. You could also drag these into your swatches, so I'm just going to make sure my swatch menu is open. And I can build my own swatch library with all of these different colors so we can quickly assess them. But you can also use the eyedropper tool as well. So sending this to the back, and I might put that on its own layer and lock it so it doesn't get in the way. So adding a new layer, did a paste, bring it down and lock it. So now that's not going to get accidentally moved. So now what? We have super high contrast with white and the stone gray color. So what I want to do is have this pop out with a really, really strong color. What would you say is our strongest color in this palette? The red. So I'm going to take the eyedropper tool and sample a red color. And this is when we need to really make our color palette choices because there's really small differences in this. So this is white. But what if we used an off-white? Remember the example we studied a couple lessons ago about how using that kind of slightly off-white kind of made it more subdued, but in a really more professional looking way? Like it just seemed more put together and polished. We're going to do the same thing. Instead of just leaving this white, I'm going to take the eyedropper tool and see if there can't be one of these off-whites that could work really good. Maybe salmon lighter or salmon lightest. So let's see how that looks. See how the difference between those? Let's do these side by side as an example. So this would be white. So there, yeah, it just kind of softens it just a little bit. And since both of those are warm colors, they're kind of more analogous. They're on the same side of the color wheel, so it works. So what about this big banner across the top? I don't want that to be the one thing that stands out. I do want menu items to stand out as well, and we're eventually going to have to make all those a lighter color. So let's see if we can't make that also the same off-white color. And you can see I'm starting to put in some watermark elements from our logo system that we developed, just using some of those small assets to have kind of background. We can change this too. Instead of making that the same color, it's going to need to stand out. So what if we used either the lightest color or salmon dark? One of those colors, just so as long as the typography is easy to read. Let's change these menu items. Let's keep all of these right now the same. And we got a lot of options here. We could do salmon lightest, which is our closest thing to white. We can do it a little bit, kind of bring out the colors in the banner so these are consistent. When you do colors, it's nice to have a theme. So if you're using colors up top, you want to try to use it somewhere else at least twice in a design if you have that opportunity to kind of unite them as kind of that unified color palette. This chopsticks needs a break. That also needs to really pop out. So we have a couple options. We can make it orange and let our color palette be more varied. We can keep it red and just kind of use a few of our color palettes. We don't have to use every single color. That is not a mandatory law. We are developing those laws right now as we speak. As we're doing these design projects, we are figuring out what are the laws that we need to set for ourselves to make everything else we do from here on out consistent. So we set the laws or rules for typography, and now we're setting for color. So we can say, okay, you have to use all three primary colors here. All three of these main colors have to be used. Or if you use one, make sure you use the secondary colors and stick within that one color for that particular piece. These are the rules we're setting. I like the idea, if I did orange, I just feel like it's a little bit disjointed here between the two. I like it a little more unified, so let's use a little less color selection, but still use different colors within that same hue. So what if I were, right now all of this typography blends together. I can't really see the menu headers. I mean, I can tell because it's a bigger typography size, but color is a great way to bring out something important, which is the headers of the menu. So we can see what would look good as menu headers. So we can even do this lightest tuna color, just doing tuna lightest. There are so many ways, so many different combinations of colors we can use for this. All I did was I switched the main header with the banner and switched those, so this one's now red and this one's now lighter. And I'm also going to make this red to tie these two colors together, and of course the red is down here. So everything feels unified. You can try this different combination, kind of the direction we were going. It's softer. This one's a little bit more kind of a reserved color palette using just the red and the dark, and you can see how all these different combinations change the mood and the tone of that piece. So you have to make sure that that matches whatever color combinations you use, matches everything we've done so far with research and our keywords, and everything we've done so far, does it match with the emotions and the feelings and the psychology of color? When you look at this, does it give you the emotions that you want the viewer to have? Do you want them to feel welcomed? Do you want them to feel safe? Do you want them to feel like they're in this really special, sacred place? Those are all things we need to think about when you're doing all, because you can have 50 different color combinations. We have a very varied palette, so the color combinations feel endless. But you need to make sure you're matching those colors with how you want the viewer to feel when they look at it. So here's an example of kind of a lighter palette. You can see both of them put together. They have very different feelings, very different makeups. And there could be practical ways to choose color. It could be that they print these menus in-house, and using a dark ink with their printers is going to waste a lot of printer ink. So switching to a lighter color might just be a more practical approach. And these are conversations you have with the client. I don't think people realize how much you need to communicate with the client to properly do all of these things. It takes a lot of communication. It's not like you go into a cave for 50 hours and you emerge with everything chosen perfectly for their situation. It is a lot of back and forth conversations, and you're starting to understand that as you're moving through this class, how many times we're bringing the client in or asking them a question. It's very normal and very natural. So we were able to create a chopstick wrapper and be able to narrow down our 3 color choices. We were able to kind of pick the one that we wanted through client feedback, and also through our colleagues' feedback. We were able to post on Facebook and Instagram and figure out kind of what people were really resonating with as well. So through all that, we were able to pick our color. We were able to show 2 different finished projects with color applied. So we have a logo design and the logo system. We have a typographic system. We were able to merge all of that with our colors to create 2 finished products and the logo design. We have a lot. We are almost ready to present to the client. We're almost ready to present it to the client. But we want to talk about one thing, and this is something that not all graphic designers or people who are in the design industry do when they're approached by clients. But I think if you offer this service, it'll help you compete with ad agencies. This is what ad agencies do. It's next level stuff. We need to talk about brand language, and we're going to talk about that in the next lesson. It's really going to set you apart from everybody else if you understand and know how to do this.